A $20,000 drone launches from Yemen, crossing the Red Sea, heading for Israeli airspace. An American destroyer detects it on radar. The crew locks on. A $2 million SM-2 interceptor missile fires from the vertical launch system. The missile climbs, tracks, intercepts, direct hit. The drone is destroyed. The attack is stopped. Mission accomplished. But here is the question no one is asking. Who just won? The drone cost $20,000. The interceptor cost $2 million. That is a 1 to 100 cost ratio. And this exchange is happening thousands of times. The simple mathematics of modern warfare is bankrupting superpowers, and the mechanism is invisible. This is the story of the asymmetric war economy, the hidden financial battlefield where cheap, mass-produced drones are defeating the most advanced and expensive defense systems ever built. In this investigation, we are going to show you the cost structure of modern proxy warfare. We are going to explain why offense has become cheaper than defense for the first time in military history. And we are going to walk through the economic doom loop that forces nations with trillion-dollar economies to spend billions defending against millions in attacks. This is not about technology. This is about mathematics. And the math does not favor the defender. Educational analysis only, not financial or geopolitical advice. To understand what is breaking, you need to understand how military economics traditionally functioned. For most of history, building weapons was expensive. Maintaining armies was expensive. Conducting warfare was expensive for everyone involved. The side with more resources usually won. Larger economies could outspend smaller ones, build more ships, train more soldiers, produce more ammunition. This created a rough equilibrium. If you wanted to threaten a superpower, you needed to be a superpower yourself. The cost symmetry held even into the late 20th century. During the Cold War, the United States and Soviet Union spent trillions on nuclear arsenals, aircraft carriers, and tank divisions, but both sides faced similar costs. An F-15 fighter cost millions to build. A Soviet MiG-29 also cost millions. A U.S. aircraft carrier cost billions. A Soviet carrier also cost billions. The competition was expensive for both sides, and that expense created strategic stability. Neither side could cheaply threaten the other. Escalation required commitment. Commitment required resources. But something fundamental has changed in the last decade. The economics have inverted. It is now cheaper to attack than to defend. Dramatically cheaper. And this inversion is not a minor tactical shift. It is a strategic revolution that is reshaping global power dynamics. Because when a $20,000 weapon forces a $2 million response, and you can produce that weapon by the thousands, you can bankrupt your adversary without ever matching their military budget. This is asymmetric warfare, not asymmetric in tactics, asymmetric in economics. And the asymmetry is accelerating. Let me show you the weapon that changed everything. The Shahed 136, an Iranian-designed kamikaze drone, also called a loitering munition. It is essentially a flying bomb. The design is simple, almost crude, a small jet engine. GPS guidance using commercial chips, a 40-kilogram warhead, plywood and fiberglass construction. Total cost to manufacture, $20,000 to $50,000 depending on the source. Some estimates go as low as $20,000. Even at the high end, it is cheap. Iran produces these drones by the thousands. The manufacturing is not high-tech. No advanced materials, no precision machining, no rare components. Everything is off the shelf or easily fabricated. The factories can scale production rapidly. If Iran wants to produce 10,000 Shahed drones, the total cost is $200 to $500 million. That is less than the cost of a single modern fighter jet. And here is the key. The drone is expendable. It is designed to be destroyed on impact. There is no expectation of recovery, no reuse. It is a one-way weapon. This changes the economics entirely. You're not building something that needs to last. You're building something that needs to explode once. The engineering tolerances are loose. The quality control is minimal. The cost is driven to the floor. Now, Iran does not operate these drones itself in most conflicts. It supplies them to proxy forces, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Iraqi militias. These groups launch the drones from their territories. The drones fly hundreds or thousands of kilometers. They target Israeli cities, Saudi oil facilities, American bases. The attacks are cheap to execute. A launcher is a truck with a ramp. The operators need minimal training. A small team can launch dozens of drones in a night. The strategic effect is enormous. Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States are forced to defend against thousands of low-cost threats. And here is where the economics become untenable. Now let me show you the other side of the equation. The defense systems, Iron Dome, Patriot, SM-2. These are the interceptors designed to shoot down incoming threats. They are technological marvels. Radar systems that can track dozens of targets simultaneously. Fire control computers that calculate intercept trajectories in milliseconds. Missiles that can hit a projectile traveling at supersonic speeds. The engineering is extraordinary and extraordinarily expensive. An Iron Dome interceptor called Tamir costs between $40,000 and $80,000 per shot. This is Israel's primary defense against short-range rockets and drones. It has a very high success rate, over 90%. But every successful intercept costs at least $40,000. An Iron Dome is the cheap option. For longer-range threats, you need Patriot missiles. A single Patriot interceptor costs $3 to $4 million. These are used to defend against ballistic missiles and larger drones. The U.S. has supplied these to Israel, Ukraine, Saudi Arabia. When you fire a Patriot, you are spending millions. For naval defense, U.S. destroyers use SM-2 and SM-6 missiles. The SM-2 costs approximately $2 million per missile. The SM-6, which is more advanced, costs over $4 million. These are fired from ships in the Red Sea to intercept Houthi drones and missiles targeting commercial shipping or U.S. assets. Now, do the math. If a $20,000 drone is intercepted by a $2 million SM-2, the cost ratio is 1 to 100. The attacker spent $20,000. The defender spent $2 million. If the attacker launches 100 drones over a month, the total attack cost is $2 million. The defender, assuming a 90% intercept rate and using SM-2s, spends $180 million. The cost ratio is catastrophic. But it gets worse. These missiles are not unlimited. The United States has a stockpile, but that stockpile is being depleted. Every missile fired in the Red Sea is a missile not available for a potential conflict with China over Taiwan. Every Patriot sent to Ukraine or Israel is one less in reserve. The production rate for these missiles is far slower than the consumption rate. It takes months to build a Patriot missile. It takes seconds to fire one. The industrial base cannot keep up with the demand. Let me walk you through the cascade. This is not hypothetical. This is the documented reality of the conflicts in Israel, Ukraine, and the Red Sea over the last 2 years. The conflict begins. Drones and rockets are launched. The defense systems activate. Iron Dome intercepts 95% of threats. Patriots knock down ballistic missiles. The media reports defense systems working perfectly, civilians safe. The public is reassured. The military is praised, but behind the scenes, accountants are horrified. The intercept cost for the first wave was $300 million. The attack cost was $5 million. The cost ratio is 60 to 1. Unsustainable. The attackers adapt. Instead of launching 10 drones, they launch 50 simultaneously. The goal is not just to hit targets. The goal is to overwhelm the defense. Iron Dome has a limited number of launchers. Each launcher has a magazine of 20 interceptors. If 50 threats are incoming, some will get through, not because the technology failed, but because the defender ran out of interceptors at that location. The system is saturated. This is called saturation tactics. The attacker does not need better technology. They just need more volume. And volume is cheap when your weapon costs $20,000. You can afford to build 1,000 drones for the cost of a single F-35 fighter jet. And those 1,000 drones launched over months can deplete billions in interceptors. Now the economic reality hits the national budget. Israel's GDP is roughly $500 billion. Their defense budget is $20 billion per year. In the first year of the current conflict, intercept costs alone have been estimated at $2 to $5 billion. That is 10 to 25% of the entire defense budget spent on interceptions, not on offensive operations, not on training or equipment upgrades, just on shooting down cheap drones and rockets. Where does this money come from? It has to be reallocated from somewhere. Other defense programs get cut, or the government requests emergency aid. Israel has received over $14 billion in supplemental military aid from the United States since October 2023. Without that aid, the intercept operations would be financially unsustainable. Israel's economy would have to choose: defend against drones or fund other critical programs, healthcare, education, infrastructure. The choice is impossible. This creates a strategic dependency. Israel becomes reliant on U.S. munition supplies and financial aid to sustain defense operations. This is not a temporary condition. As long as the threat persists, the dependency persists, and the United States faces its own constraints. Every interceptor sent to Israel is one less in the stockpile for other contingencies. The Pentagon is now managing a global allocation problem. How many Patriots go to Ukraine? How many to Israel? How many to Taiwan if needed? How many stay in reserve? There are not enough to go around. This is the current state, an equilibrium that is economically unsustainable. The attacks continue at a rate that costs the attacker millions per month. The defense costs the defender billions per month. The defender is winning tactically. Most threats are intercepted, but the defender is losing economically. The budget is bleeding, and there is no end in sight, because the attacker can sustain their spending indefinitely. Iran's economy is roughly $500 billion. Spending $10 million per month on drones and rockets is trivial. But for the defender, spending $2 billion per month on intercepts is existential. But here is the deeper problem. This is not just an Israel problem, this is a template. Any nation or proxy force with access to drone technology can now wage economic attrition warfare against a wealthier adversary. The Houthis in Yemen, one of the poorest countries in the world, have forced the United States Navy to spend over $1 billion in interceptor missiles, defending against attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. A non-state actor with minimal resources is imposing billion-dollar costs on the world's largest military. This is a fundamental shift in the balance of power. Small actors can now inflict strategic costs on superpowers, not by matching their military capability, but by exploiting the cost asymmetry. The offense is cheap, the defense is expensive, and in a war of attrition, the side with lower costs wins. Let me translate the asymmetric war economy into personal impact. Because when superpowers spend billions on interceptor missiles and proxy forces disrupt global trade routes, the costs do not stay in the Middle East. They show up in your life. Your gas prices spike. The Houthi attacks in the Red Sea have forced commercial shipping to reroute around Africa instead of using the Suez Canal. This adds 2 weeks to the voyage from Asia to Europe. Shipping costs have doubled. Those costs get passed to consumers. The fuel surcharge on goods increases. Your cost of living rises, not because of domestic policy, because of a proxy war in Yemen. Your tax dollars fund interceptor missiles. The United States has sent over $14 billion in military aid to Israel since October 2023. That money comes from the federal budget. It is either added to the deficit or reallocated from other programs. Either way, you pay. Through inflation, if it is deficit financed, through cuts to other services, if it is reallocated. The war has a price tag, and taxpayers carry it. Your investments in defense contractors surge, then correct. When conflicts escalate, defense stocks rally. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Investors bet that governments will spend more on weapons. But if the conflict drags on and budgets are strained, the orders slow. The stocks correct. If you're holding defense ETFs in your 401k, the volatility hits your retirement account. Your supply chain disruptions continue. Shipping delays from Red Sea rerouting mean the products you order take longer to arrive. Inventory shortages mean prices stay elevated. The just-in-time supply chain model breaks down. Companies hold more inventory as a buffer. That working capital has a cost. The cost is passed to consumers. Your inflation does not ease as quickly as it should. Your geopolitical risk premium increases. Every time a drone hits an oil facility or a commercial ship is damaged, the risk premium on global trade increases. Insurance costs rise. Financing costs rise. These costs are embedded in the price of goods. You do not see a line item that says war risk surcharge, but it is there. In the price of electronics, clothing, food, everything that moves through global trade routes. This is the hidden cost of asymmetric warfare. The attacks are far away, but the economic consequences are everywhere. Because when the global economy is interconnected, disruptions propagate. And the mathematics of cheap offense versus expensive defense ensures those disruptions are frequent. We have mapped the asymmetric war economy, the cost inversion where offense became cheaper than defense, the swarm tactics that exploit cost ratios, the budget bleeding that creates strategic dependency, the cascading global economic effects. Each stage is mechanical, each stage is measurable, and the warning signs are visible. So how do you know when the asymmetric war economy is reaching a breaking point? When defense budgets can no longer sustain the intercept costs? There are 3 signals to watch. If the Pentagon or defense contractors publicly acknowledge that interceptor production cannot meet demand, the stockpile crisis is real. Watch for phrases like prioritizing munitions for critical theaters or extending delivery timelines. If Raytheon or Lockheed announce they are doubling Patriot production, but it will take 3 years to ramp up, that confirms current supply is inadequate. The military is consuming missiles faster than industry can build them. This is the industrial base failure signal. Israel has already received $14 billion. If they return to Congress requesting another $10 billion or more specifically for air defense, it means their own budget cannot sustain the intercept costs. This is the fiscal breaking point. Watch Israeli government budget debates and U.S. congressional hearings on military aid. If the aid requests become annual or biannual, the dependency is permanent. The cost structure is unsustainable without external funding. If Lockheed, Raytheon, or Northrop report in their quarterly earnings that they have a multi-year backlog on interceptor missiles and cannot accelerate production, the constraint is binding. The demand is there, the money is there, but the industrial capacity is not. This is the production ceiling signal. Watch defense contractor earnings calls and DoD acquisition reports. If lead times go from 12 months to 36 months, the system is breaking. Watch for these 3. If you see 1, the strain is real. If you see 2, the model is failing. If you see all 3, the asymmetric war economy has reached its limit, and the strategic implications are profound. This has been the anatomy of the asymmetric war economy. For most of history, warfare was expensive for everyone. Attackers and defenders faced similar costs. Technology advantages could shift the balance, but economics stayed symmetric. That symmetry is gone. The cost to attack is now a fraction of the cost to defend. A $20,000 drone forces a $2 million response, a 100-to-1 ratio. Do that 1,000 times, 10,000 times. The defender goes bankrupt before the attacker runs out of drones. We connected the mechanisms. The drone revolution made attacks cheap, mass production, off-the-shelf components. Expendable by design, the defense trap made interception expensive. Advanced technology, precision engineering, limited stockpiles. The cost asymmetry created an economic attrition model. The attacker bleeds the defender's budget. The defender becomes dependent on external aid. The equilibrium is unsustainable. And we showed you the consequences. Not just for Israel or the United States, for you. Higher gas prices, higher taxes, supply chain delays, geopolitical risk premiums. The war is in the Middle East, but the invoice is global. This is not about who has better technology. Israel's Iron Dome works. The intercept rate is over 90%. American SM-2 missiles hit their targets. The systems perform as designed. But performance is not the question. Affordability is the question. And the math does not work. $20,000 beats $2 million when you can launch 20,000 times. The weapon is not the drone. The weapon is the cost ratio. And that weapon is bankrupting superpowers. Stay informed, watch the signals, and remember, in modern warfare, the side that can afford the math wins. And right now, the math favors the attacker.